Hello to all our listeners. We are studying today Hilchot Eruvin, 8th chapter, which is also the last chapter of Hilchot Eruvin. This chapter specifies and deals with some issues that were not dealt with previously in Eruvin. The chapter is divided into three main parts. The first one is cases in which two Eruvin are made, whether by mistake or for a specific need, like when somebody does not know in which direction he will need to go on Shabbat. The second part of the chapter deals with the laws of Eruvin Techumin on Yom Tov or Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur actually. The third part of the chapter deals with two Eruvin on two consecutive days, like Yom Tov, that come after Shabbat, and the person wants to walk in a different direction on Shabbat. So you're going to need two different Eruvin in two different directions on two different days. So all that will be seen in this chapter, Be'ezrat Hashem, which is the concluding chapter for Hilchot Eruvin. Halacha Aleph. אין מניחין שני עירובין, אחד במזרח ואחד במערב, כדי שיהלך במקצת היום על אחד משני העירובין, ובשאר היום על העירוב השני, שאין מערבין שני עירובין ליום אחד. It is not permitted to place two עירובין in two different directions, so for example, in two different sides of the city, for example, one on the east of the city and one on the west of the city, so to speak, allow the person to walk part of the day on one Eruv and part of the day in the direction of the other Eruv, thus allowing him to walk way further than would be allowed with one Eruv, because it is not permitted to do two Eruvin for one day. Somebody who made a mistake and made an Eruv in two directions, or he thought that he could make an Eruv in two directions, and told two separate people, to make two different Eruvin for him in two different directions. For example, one person made an Eruv for him on the Safon on his behalf, and one in the north on his behalf, and one person made an Eruv for him in the south on his behalf. Even though this was not allowed from the get-go, we call it the after it was done, he may walk in both those directions. Halacha Bet. Kesa. How could he walk in the directions that both of his messengers walked? Like in our previous halakha, one guy went north and one guy went south. He may only walk in a place that both of the messengers could walk in. In other words, if we were to have a Venn diagram and have two of the circles overlapping one another, so it would only be in the place in between the two circles, the place in which, so the first circle representing the place in which one of the messengers could go, and the second representing the place in which the other messenger can go, and the overlapping spot is where the person could walk. הניח השני מהן עירובו ברחוק 500 אמה לרוח מערב, אין זה שיערבו עליו מהלך במערב אלא 1,000 אמה, כרגלי מי שעירב עליו במזרח, ולא יהלך במזרח אלא 1,500, כרגלי מי שעירב עליו במערב. לפיכך, אם עירב או עירבו עליו שני עירובין אלו, אחד ברחוק 2,000 למזרח ואחד ברחוק 2,000 למערב, הרי זה לא יזוז ממקומו. Right. So, the place in which, this is a difficult halakha to explain. So, for example, Rambam is giving an example where one of the messengers placed his Eruv 1,000 amot eastward, and the second messenger placed his Eruv 500 amot westward. The person that sent these messengers could walk westward 1,000 amot. Why? Like the direct for this, because that is the same amount of distance the person that placed the Eruv eastward could go. In other words, only 1,000 amot. And also eastward, he could only go 1,500 amot, which is the maximum that the person who placed the Eruv on the westward could walk. Therefore, um, if both these Eruvin were put in place, one with 2,000 to the east and one with 2,000 to the west. In other words, if two Eruvin were placed on behalf of one person, 2,000 amot away from his house, then he cannot leave his house because there's no overlapping spot in which both of the Me'arevin could walk. Because as we said, the place where the Eruv, again, imagine two circles. In each circle, the middle of the circle is the place where the Eruv was placed. And the circles have a radius of 2,000 amot. So if there's an overlapping spot in which both the people that placed both those Eruvin could walk in together, okay. But if there's no overlapping spot, then the person can't even leave his house. And that is like a kenas of Hachamim. Because he has to conform with both of the Eruvin, and he can't walk in both in two, way further. So I retract what I said in Halacha Aleph. And as it was explained in this Halacha is what was meant in Halacha Aleph in the case of two people. In the case of a person that has two messengers. Halacha Gimel. A person may do two Eruvin in two different directions if he does a specific condition. He says, if I need, for the reason of a mitzvah or some sort of pressure that I have to go in the direction of this Eruv, for example, the east Eruv, then the second Eruv, then this is the Eruv that I trust, and the second Eruv is an invalid one and was never valid. He says, and if I need this other Eruv, then the first Eruv is also invalid and was like I never needed it, and only the other Eruv can be used, and this is the one I want. And then he also in the condition may put, if I need both of the directions, in other words, if I have a need for both sides, I may choose which side I want to use, and the other side would be invalid for him. On Shabbat, he can make the decision. In Shineha Eruvin Ella, it so now if he says a different condition, he says, now he makes a new condition. So the first condition we said is that he specifies and says that if he needs one of the sides, then the other side will be an invalid one, and only one side will be decided to be usable. However, if he says, if right. So in this halacha, right, it is unclear to me, I'm not 100% sure on the second condition here. This is ambiguous to me. I will explain it according to my understanding of the halacha. And if anybody has a better explanation, I would love to hear it in the comments or in a message. So I'll go over the halacha. So a person, Rambam is saying, a person may do two Eruvin in two different directions and make the following condition. The condition is like this. He says, if I have a reason warranting the use of one side of the Eruv, for example, we have an east Eruv and a west Eruv. So if I have a reason warranting the use of the east Eruv tomorrow, meaning on Shabbat, then the west Eruv is not valid, and the east Eruv is my Eruv, is the one that I originally intended for. And again, he says, if I have a use for the west Eruv, then the east Eruv is the one I did not intend to, and the west Eruv is the one I intended to use. And then he says another condition. Okay, so this is the continuation of his original condition. He says, and if I need both of the directions, I have a need warranting the use of both directions. Of course, he cannot use both directions, but he has a need for both directions. Then he may decide whichever side that he wants from both directions. So let's say so what is this part of the condition is covering that if he has a need to go on both sides, in other words, he has two reasons to go on both sides, he still nevertheless can make a decision to choose one side. Of course, he's not allowed to choose both sides. And then he says, if I have no need for any of these Eruvin, then I don't have to go in any, then these Eruvin are invalid from now, and I don't trust them, and I am like the people of my city, and I may go 2,000 amot outside the radius of my city, and those are the conditions. So again, it's many conditions to cover him from all sides and allow these two Eruvin to be considered able to be put in place. Halacha dalet. כשם שאסור לשאת חוץ לתחום שבת, כך אסור ביום טוב וביום הכיפורים. The same way it is not permitted to leave תחום Shabbat on Shabbat, it is also not allowed to leave it on Yom Tov and Yom Kippur. וכשם שמוציא מרשות לרשות בשבת חייב, ככה מוציא ביום הכיפורים חייב. In the same way somebody it is prohibited from scriptural law, and in Hayav Karet, if somebody takes out on Shabbat from the private domain to public domain or vice versa, so also on Yom Kippur it is not permitted. However, on Yom Tov it is permitted to take out from domain to domain. Therefore, Eruvin Haserot and Shitufei Mevo'ot could be done on Yom Kippur, just like on Shabbat, to allow people to carry in and out of domains. Of course, on Yom Tov you don't need this, because on Yom Tov you may carry nevertheless. And also, for Yom Kippur and Yom Tovim, you may do Eruvin Tehumin to widen the range of the Tehum, to allow people to walk further than they were originally able to, just like is done on Shabbat, could be done on Yom Tov and Yom Kippur. Halacha he. Yom Tov shehal hiyot samuch l'Shabbat. A Yom Tov that was directly before, or that was right next to Shabbat. Ben milifanea ben la'achareha. Whether it was before Shabbat or after Shabbat. So you had Yom Tov on a Friday or on a Sunday. Or the 2 days of Galuyot. Okay, so for example, you have Shabbat, and then Sunday, Monday you have Yom Tov. Or you have Thursday, Friday Yom Tov, Shel Galuyot, and then Shabbat you have Shabbat. יש לו לערב שני עירובין לשתי רוחות, וסומך על איזה מהן שירצה ליום הראשון, ושל העירוב שברוח השנית ליום השני, ומערב עירוב אחת לרוח אחת, וסומך עליו לאחת משני הימים. The person may make 2 עירובין and use one Eruv for one day and another Eruv for the next day. Of course, he has to specify that he is using one Eruv on one day and one for the next day. Or he also may make one Eruv to one direction for both of the days, and the second day, and he could also make Eruv לרוח אחת, אחד לרוח אחד וסומך עליו לאחד משני הימים. Sorry, he may also make one Eruv to one direction, which is only for one day, when in the next day he is like the rest of the residents of the city, and he has 2,000 amot outside the confines of the city. However, on the 2 days, this is all saying what you could do from one day to another is on 2 days of Yom Tov, one right after the other, of Galuyot, of all of the holidays except Rosh Hashanah. However, Rosh Hashanah, the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, these are considered to be like one long day, like one long Kedusha, and you can only do one Eruv for that day of Rosh Hashanah. One Eruv in one direction. וכן מתנה אדם הלכה ו' וכן מתנה אדם על עירובו ואומר עירובי לשבת זו, אבל לא לשבת אחרת, אבל לא לשבתות, לא ימים טובים, לימים טובים ולא לשבתות. The person also may make a condition for his Eruv and say, my Eruv is for this Shabbat and not for the next, or I'm putting an Eruv here for next Shabbat but not for this Shabbat. I'm putting this Eruv is only for Shabbatot and not for Yom Tovim, or vice versa. He may make that type of condition as well. אמר לחמישה, הלכה זין, אמר לחמישה, הדין היא מערב על איזה מקם שארסה. רציתי ילך, לא רציתי לא ילך. אף על פי שרצה משחשיכה ילך. דבר שהוא מדוברי סופרים, יש בו ברירה. Right. So this halakha is dealing with somebody that tells a group of people, could be up to 5, it could be 5 or more people, it doesn't really matter. The amount of people given here is just for the purpose of illustration. Right. You may tell the people, I am doing an Eruv on behalf of whichever one of you that I decide. So he takes a group of people and he tells them, I'm doing an Eruv for whichever one of you that I decide. The Eruv will be valid for the person based on my decision. This is what the person said. And he tells one of the people, the Eruv is for you, and you, I did the Eruv and it was for you. Now that person may go. And even if on Shabbat he tells him that he specified the Eruv for him, he still may go, even if on Shabbat he found out that the Eruv was placed for him by that person. Because it's from the sages, it's a takana from the Hachamim, it is a little less, there's more room for choice. Also, if somebody makes an Eruv, places an Eruv Tehumin in a certain place and makes it valid for the whole year, in other words, for all the time, he still may make a condition that it's up to him whether or not he uses that Eruv or not. And even if, and for every Shabbat, he may make the decision if this Shabbat he wants to use the Eruv or not. And even if on Shabbat he makes the decision, it is still valid. He still may, the decision is a valid decision. Halakha Hayt. המערב לשני ימים טובים של גלויות, או לשבת ויום טוב, אף על פי שהוא עירוב אחד לרוח אחת לשני הימים, צריך שיהיה עירוב במקומו מסוי בליל ראשון ובליל שני, כל בין השמשות. Somebody makes an Eruv for 2 days of Yom Tov, like in the Galuyot, or for Shabbat that was right before or after Yom Tov. So 2 consecutive days that you're not allowed to leave the Tehum. Even if it's an Eruv for one direction for both of the days, and obviously if it's an Eruv for 2 directions for each one of the days, the Eruv needs to be placed in its specific place, all of Ben HaShemashot of the first day and all of Ben HaShemashot of the next day. Kesadu Oseh, what does he do? מוליכו בערב יום טוב ובערב שבת ומחשיך עליו ונוטלו בידו ובא לו אם היה ליל יום טוב. What does he do? He brings his food for the Eruv to the place which he wants to do Shevitah, and he puts it there in Ben HaShemashot of the first day. So if it was, let's say it was Yom Tov, was the first day, so he goes, Erev Yom Tov, goes and does, and waits for the night to come, and then takes back the food with him to his house. And then when Shabbat comes, he goes before Shabbat and puts the food there on Shabbat. Also, vice versa. מחל מוליכו לאותו מקום ומניחו שמה שתחשך ואוכלו אם היה לשבת ומביאו אם היה ליום טוב מפני שאין שתי קדושות ואינו כיום אחד כדי שנאמר מליל ראשון קנה עירוב לשני ימים, because Yom Tov and Shabbat are 2 separate kedushot, therefore he has to make sure to place an Eruv for each one of the days. So if it was Yom Tov before Shabbat, for example, he had Yom Tov Thursday night, he goes Thursday evening, he places the Eruv and then may take it back with him to his house. And then again, before Shabbat, he places the Eruv. However, if it was Shabbat and then Yom Tov, in which he cannot carry the Eruv back with him on Shabbat, so let's say Friday night, he takes the Eruv, leaves it there, then Saturday night for Yom Tov, he must make sure that the Eruv is still in place, either by protecting it, guarding it, or something to the effect of that. He must make sure the Eruv is in place because he cannot carry on Shabbat. Halakha Tet. Ve'echal ha'eruv barishon. Kana ha'eruv larishon ve'en la'eruv l'sheni. If the Eruv was eaten on the first day of the 2 consecutive days, either Yom Tov after and then Shabbat, or Shnei Yom Tov Shegaluyot, and the Eruv was eaten on the first day, then the Eruv only is valid for the first day and not the second. עירב ברגליו בראשון, צריך לערב ברגליו בשני, והוא שילך ויעמוד באותו מקום, ויחשוב בליבו שיקנה שם שביתה. We spoke last chapter about עירוב ברגליים, about walking to a specific spot, and having that as the place that the shevitah was made, thus being an Eruv Tehumin, allowing the person to walk in 2,000 amot in the radius, in wherever, in any direction from where he stopped. So if he does that on the first day of the 2 kedushot of the 2 days, he must do it also on the second day, and this is on condition that he walks all the way to the place which he wants to do the shevitah, and think in his mind that he wants to actually have shevitah there, just as specified in previous chapters. So if he couldn't make it, it's also enough to specify from afar that he wants to have the Eruv where he wants to have it, and it has to be a specific place. And you could listen to last chapter for the specifics of how to do Eruvin Beraglayin, how to do Eruv by walking Eruv Tehumin through the feet. עירב פת בראשון, עירב בפת בראשון, אם נסה לערב ברגליו בשני, הרי זה עירוב. ואם נסה לערב בפת, צריך לערב באותה הפת עצמה שעירב בה בראשון. Somebody who did עירוב with bread on the first day of Yom Tov and wants to do עירוב with this by walking on the second day, he may. However, if he did עירוב with bread and he wants to do עירוב with bread the second day, it must be the same bread that he did the first day's עירוב with. הלכה יוד. יום הכיפורים שחל להיות ערב שבת או לאחר השבת. בזמן שמקדשים על ראייה, יראה לי שאין כיום אחד וקדושה אחת הן. A Yom Kippur that came directly before or directly after Shabbat, and this is something that could only happen בזמן שמקדשים על ראייה. In our days, the way the calendar is made, Yom Kippur cannot come out Friday or Sunday. Therefore, the only way for this to happen would be in the time where the calendar is decided based on the cycles of the moon, as seen by the people, and said to Bedin. There's a whole thing called there's a whole set of halachot kedusha chodesh that deals with this. So Yom Kippurim that is like that. Harambam says Yera'eli. This is a decision that he made based on his understanding of the Talmud, and he's saying it is not meaning this is his opinion on the matter. Is that it is one kedusha that Yom Tov that Yom Kippur that leads up to Shabbat, or Shabbat that leads directly up to Yom Kippur, only one Eruv Tehomim could be placed as one long day, just like Rosh Hashanah, which is one long 2-day holiday. Halacha Yod Aleph. זה שאמרנו שיש לו לאדם לערב שני עירובין בשתי רוחות לשני הימים, והוא שיאפשר לו להגיע לכל אחד משני העירובין ביום הראשון. This that we said, that a person may put two Eruvin in two different directions for 2 different days, in other words, for 2 consecutive Yomim Tovim, or for Yom Tov and then right before that leads up to a Shabbat, is as long as on the first day he could reach both sides of the Eruvin, both sides of the Eruvin that he placed. אבל אם היה אפשר לו להגיע לעירוב של יום השני ביום הראשון, אין עירוב השני עירוב שהעירוב מסוותו שיהיה בסעודה הראויה מבעוד יום. However, if he couldn't in any way make it to the second day's Eruv on the first day, then the Eruv of the second day, the second Eruv for the second day is not considered an Eruv, because the whole point of Eruv is that it has to be food that is edible for a Sa'udah from the daytime already of before the Eruv is put into place, and if it is not, then it is not an Eruv. And this is because he couldn't reach it on the first day of Yom Tov, the second day's Eruv, so it is not considered an Eruv. I'll give an example to illustrate the matter. For example, you have 2 Yomim Tovim consecutively, Tuesday and Wednesday. So he places the Eruv, both Eruvin, on Tuesday night. He must place on Monday night leading up to Tuesday, which Monday night is when the Hag starts, of course. So Monday night and Tuesday night. And he places both Eruvin. So both Eruvin have to be accessible for the first day. Now, let's say the second day, on Tuesday night, the second Eruv, now let's say Tuesday, all of Tuesday, the second Eruv wasn't accessible until the end of Tuesday, until Ben Hashem Hashotam, between Tuesday and Wednesday, which is a time that is not for sure day, not for sure night. It would seem from this halacha also that the Eruv for the second day is a valid one. But in any event, the guiding rule for this halacha is that the Eruv for the second day out of 2 consecutive days, out of Yom Tov, Shabbat, Eruv Tehumim has to be accessible for the first day in order to be valid on the second day, because it's supposed to be food that is edible from the daytime. Halacha Yod Bet. Kesar. Now I'm going to specify. Somebody that put an Eruv 2,000 amot away from his house eastward. And this was his Eruv for the first day out of the 2 consecutive days. And he put a second Eruv, either 1 or 100 or 1,000 amot away from his house on westward. וסמך עליו ליום שני, אין זה השני עירוב, שהרי ביום הראשון אין זה העירוב השני ראוי לו מבעוד יום. And he put his עירוב far from his house westward some amount, and he wanted it to be his Eruv for the second day. The second day's Eruv isn't a valid Eruv because he couldn't reach it during the whole first day. And this is because during the whole first day, his Eruv was 2,000 amot away from his house. And we said that the Eruv is the place from which you could carry. So the 2,000 amot radius from the Eruv took him all the way up to his house. He couldn't access the westward side Eruv. It wasn't encompassed within the Eruv of the first day, within the Tehum of the first day. So if the second day's Eruv isn't encompassed within the Tehum of the first day's Eruv, then the second day's Eruv is not a valid Eruv. So even if the Eruv is a meter or 1 amma away from the house, westward, and the Eruv eastward for the first day is 2,000 amot away, thus allowing him to walk only up to his house and no further west, then the second Eruv is invalid because it was not able to be used the first day. And I repeated this a few times for the sake of clarification of the halakha. Halakha yod gimal. אבל אם הניח עירובו בריחוק 1,500 אמה מביתו ברוח מזרח, וסמך עליו ליום ראשון, והניח עירוב שני רחוק מביתו לרוח מערב בתוך 500 אמה, וסמך עליו ליום שני. הרי זה עירוב שהרי אפשר לו שיגיע לו ביום הראשון. However, if the first day's עירוב encompassed within it the place where the second day's Eruv was placed, then the second day's Eruv is valid. So I'll repeat the guiding rule for both these halachot. If the first day's Eruv, the first day's Tehum, in other words, the first day's confines, 2,000 amot radius, holds within it the place of the second day's Tehum, the food of the second day's Tehum, or the place of the second day's Tehum, the second day's Tehum is valid. But if it does not hold within it at all, encompass within it the place of the second day's Tehum, then the second day's Tehum is invalid. The second day's Eruv is an invalid Eruv. Halakha yod dalet. Yom Tov שיחל להיות בערב שבת. אינו עושה עירוב ביום טוב, לא עירובי חסרות ולא עירובי תחומין, אלא מערבהו ביום חמישי שהוא ערב יום טוב. So if you had a Yom Tov that was on Shabbat, you may not do the Eruvin for Shabbat, you may not perform the Eruvin for Shabbat on Yom Tov itself, but rather you have to do it before Yom Tov. So if the Yom Tov was on a Friday, then you must do the Eruvin for Shabbat from Thursday, before Yom Tov enters. Also, if it was a double Yom Tov, like in the Galut, and for example started Thursday, was Thursday, Friday was Yom Tov, then you must from Wednesday night already prepare the Eruvin for Shabbat and Yom Tov to have them in place, because you're not allowed to do the Eruvin on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to prepare the Eruvin on Yom Tov for Shabbat. ואם שכח ולא ערב, הרי זה מערב עירובי חסרות בחמישי ובערב שבת ומתנה, אבל לא עירובי תחומין. However, if he forgot to do the Eruvin for Shabbat on from before Yom Tov, then he may do Eruvei Haserot and Eruvei Mevo'ot and Shetufei Mevo'ot on Yom Tov. However, with the special condition that we will specify in the next halakha. However, he may not do so with Eruvei Tehumin. If he didn't do Eruvei Tehumin, then from before Yom Tov, then he cannot do it on Yom Tov for Shabbat. Now he's going to explain the condition that the person makes in order to be allowed to make Eruvei Haserot or Shetufei Mevo'ot on Yom Tov for Shabbat in a case in which he forgot. Kesad matne. Omer b'hamishi. Im hayom Yom Tov. Em b'dvarai kelu. Okay, so I must give a little preface to understand this halakha. The whole point of Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galuyot is because it's a safek, because we're not sure which one of the days is actually Yom Tov. Why? In the days of the early sages, the way that we would decide which day is Yom Tov is via Kiddush HaChodesh, via looking at the moon. You would have witnesses who would see the moon, and they would go to Beit Din and tell the Beit Din, we saw the moon, and the Beit Din would decide what day the month starts. And based on what day the month starts, Yom Tov would be decided. So if Yom Tov is on Yodah on Tetvav, let's say Pesach is on Tetvav, Nisan, so it would be decided based on what day the witnesses came. So sometimes the witnesses would come a day early, they would come one day with 1 day difference. There was a chance that it would be 1 day before or 1 day after. And that's why there would be an ambiguity when Yom Tov comes out. So for the for the people living in Eretz Yisrael, this was no problem, because the knowledge of the month being of the day the month starts would be spread fast enough in time for Yom Tov to come. However, for the people living out of Israel, it would take a long time for the messengers to come and tell them what day Yom Tov is, and therefore they wouldn't know what day Yom Tov is, and then they would have to do 2 days of Yom Tov, and each day would be maybe Yom Tov, maybe not Yom Tov. We wouldn't be sure. And till today we have that. That is the reason we do 2 days of Yom Tov. Until today, because of that, even though we don't do Kiddush HaChodesh anymore, they still do Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galuyot. Interesting would be to see what would happen, Be'ezrat Hashem, when the Sanhedrin comes up and we start doing Kiddush HaChodesh again, if Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galuyot would stay, or would be canceled, and there would only be 1 day of Yom Tov and Galuyot, because it's much easier today, obviously, to tell people when Rosh Chodesh was made, internet and etc. and technology. So now with that, let's enter the halakha. So again, now I'll just repeat the background that was given in halakha Yod Dalet for this halakha. If somebody forgot to do Eruvin Tehumin, or Eruvin or Shitufei Mevo'ot, or Eruvin Haserot before Yom Tov, then he cannot do it on Yom Tov for Shabbat. Before Yom Tov for Shabbat, then he cannot do it on Yom Tov for Shabbat. This is when they're connected, if it's Yom Tov right before Shabbat. However, and now Eruvin Tehumin at all cannot be done. However, Eruvin Haserot can be done with the following condition made. Okay, in the case in which the person forgot and it was Yom Tov right before Shabbat. Kesed Motneh. How does he do the Tenai? Omer בחמישי, אם היום יום טוב, אין בדברי כלום. ואם לאו, הרי זה עירוב. ולמחר חוזר ומערב ואומר, אם היום יום טוב, כבר ערבתי מאמש. ואין בדברי היום כלום. ואם אמש היה יום טוב, הרי זה עירוב. So what does he say? Let's say it was Yom Tov, that was Thursday and Friday. And he forgot to do the Eruv, and he remembers on Thursday. And he wants to do Eruvin for Shabbat. Eruvin, Haserot, and Shitufei Mevo'ot. He says, if today, Thursday, is Yom Tov, then the Eruv that I'm doing today for Shabbat is not an Eruv, it's nothing. However, if today isn't Yom Tov, then this is the Eruv that I'm preparing ahead of time for Shabbat, Thursday. Then the next day, on Friday, he says the same thing. He says, if today really is Yom Tov, according to the law, then yesterday's Eruv is not an Eruv. Yesterday's Eruv is an Eruv, and today's Eruv is nothing. However, if today is not Yom Tov, then yesterday's Eruv is not an Eruv, and today's Eruv is the Eruv for Shabbat. In that way, his Eruv becomes a valid Eruv for Shabbat. This is, of course, when we have these double headers in the 2 days of Galuyot. However, however, in the 2 days of Yom Tov that we do for Rosh Hashanah, these 2 days are considered to be like one long continuous day, and therefore we cannot make any special conditions from day to day to allow us to do Eruvin. And again, this whole condition could be done only when there's 2 Yom Tovim consecutively in the Galut. However, in Israel, in Eretz Yisrael, where there's 1 day of Yom Tov, it cannot be done. And with this, we conclude all of Ilchot Eruvin. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.